Hey, it is Monday, mid-June, in the back half of mid-June. We're on the back nine of mid-June, which means it's time for Rory McIlroy to miss another couple putts. So I wanted to take some time today, since there's not a whole lot of move other than Brandon Ayuk telling the world that the San Francisco 49ers don't want him. I think the Texans are out of trading for Brandon Ayuk now that unless he trades Stephon Diggs for Brandon Ayuk. I don't know. Anything could happen. There's no real news as of right this moment. Braden, fire me up. I'm going to try to, man. I'm going to try to. We'll look at a little bit of Danielle Hunter film. And the one thing about Danielle Hunter is I will say I fall into that category of people that J.J. Watt accused of being underappreciative of Danielle Hunter because he plays off in the vast, great, forgotten north of Minnesota, or he did. And the more I've watched him, I've really gotten even more of an appreciation for what a technician he is. Like I would say he's an artist when it comes to pass rush. He does a lot of things that a lot of guys try to do, which is incorporate a huge repertoire of moves. And a lot of guys, when they try to do that, they end up coming up short and like literally limp. I'm not making a sexual connotation there or anything. Like, they come up limp because guys aren't strong enough and authoritative enough with trying a multiple different pass rush arsenal that they don't do as effectively as Danielle Hunter. So from that standpoint, I'm really excited about his influence he can have on Will Anderson. And I don't think Will's gonna try to incorporate every single move that Danielle Hunter has in year one. It would be really bad if he did. But I think he can incorporate a few things. Will had talked in the offseason about how he wanted to add more spin moves to his arsenal this year. And spin moves are interesting because a lot of high school and college coaches do not want their guys hitting spins because the vast majority of young defensive linemen and young NFL defensive linemen, but especially in high school and youth league and college, they use the spin move at all the wrong times, and they take themselves completely out of plays. They try them versus the run when they shouldn't be, and all these other things. So I think Will, as a guy that accepts coaching, has probably had it drilled into his head at some point not to spin. And even though the Texans coaching staff was encouraging him to do it last year, it takes a little while to get comfortable with it. Danielle Hunter does it masterfully. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to watch some games from one of the Green Bay games last year that Minnesota had. And this is also, I think, a really good example of how, as an NFL pass rusher, these guys that are so good at what they do, they can be beating the crap out of a guy all day long and still come up short and not get a sack. So Danielle Hunter didn't get a sack until the very last series of this game. But you could see he was working things and setting it up and having success on a lot of, frankly, even on a lot of completions by Jordan Love. So we'll go through here. Let me take a couple questions first. Fired up, yes. What's up? I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm happy. I didn't overdo it on Father's Day. We had a big dinner with my wife's family, and I only had 2 servings of strawberry shortcake, which is probably the healthiest of all cake-based desserts. It's barely a cake. Happy to be here before we started. Cool pop. Yeah, I actually announced it 40 minutes ahead of time. And this is where you guys know where I am with these promises sometimes of daily or frequent live streams. It seems like 1 p.m. Central is probably going to be the most realistic time if you want to catch me live, because it gives me a couple hours after the morning show to get a few things together. Like, I just edited these clips together from this game in the half hour leading up to the show. So 1 p.m. local for now, and I'm going to try to sustain that through training camp and on into the season. Will Anderson, Denico Autry, Danielle Hunter, and J.J. Watt. That's right. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Honestly, I've kind of boycotted that topic ever since J.J. started talking about how much Zone 2 cardio he's doing. That Zone 2 is when you're in that conversational pace, which doesn't exist for big men when we jog. So you conversational pace on an elliptical or on a stationary bike or something. But that's not a NFL defensive lineman style workout, at least not 3 times a week in the offseason. Opens up the DeMarcus Ware style fake spin. Yes. First, they must respect your spin, and then they will respect your fake spin, or they'll get duped with your fake spin. All right, Braden. Awesome. All right, so here we go. I don't know how well this is going to go. I tried to get my digital pen working beforehand, but I can't insult you guys by putting up inferior pen work until I get comfortable with it. I've got a system now, but it really, like, on our streaming, it doesn't quite work properly. So we're going to start off with Danielle Hunter. He's the first one I happened to grab was him just to get a look at his versatility. He's right up there over the center. So stand up, Jadeveon Clowney style. He moves a little bit different than Jadeveon Clowney, but you can see he uses his length to take these huge steps, and that's not something that Will can necessarily emulate because he doesn't have the same length. But the big steps is just, it's all the rage these days in the NFL, and it's just way more effective than it looks. At times it looks like it's like you're losing strength when you do it, but Danielle Hunter does it really well. And then gets his hips turned, which means he points his toes and almost gets his hand on the ball. You're going to see that multiple times in this game. Here he is at the right defensive end, so the left of your screen. Gets upfield, and right there, that extension. Remember Will said that one of the things he's working at this year in the offseason is extension at the top of the rush. Like, Danielle Hunter can go multiple ways when he's got this extension. He's got those long arms. He's got his left hand in the chest of the offensive tackle. And then he gets up past the quarterback and understands that once you get past the quarterback, you're useless. You know, unless you're able to rush around and get your hand in and swat, he's got a really good feel for when to come back. That ends up being a completion, but it was a good pass rush by Danielle Hunter. Here he is, left defensive end, so the right side of your screen. Does that big hop, comes back underneath, gets a hit, still a completion, but on a short play. I want to go back to just this becomes a recurring thing, which a lot of these guys do now, and Will hasn't really incorporated it. Two things that apply to Will here is that Will is usually faster off the ball. Like at the snap, Will gets across the line really fast. I would say faster than Danielle Hunter, even though Danielle's a superior athlete to just about everybody in the NFL. But one of Will's strengths is he doesn't have the length that Danielle Hunter does, but he gets across the line really quickly. But then watch the big leap that they take, kind of like it's not even a Euro step because it's to the inside, but it doesn't look anatomically correct. It looks like you're going to lose strength and be off base. But as long as you do it when that guy's sitting down and not attacking you, it gets you that much extra ground. So that third, fourth step for Will, I think, is where he can take a lot of strides this year, literally take more strides on getting upfield even faster. And then has that really good extension the entire time that lets him come back inside with being unfettered. Here he is, left defensive end. This one, if I recall properly, is just to watch how tenacious Danielle Hunter is. So has to beat this offense. Oh, no, this one he just turns the corner like a freak. And there's another thing Will talked about is the ability to turn the corner. When you get right there, it seems like, oh, yeah, you got him beat. It should be easy. The really good offensive tackles are regathering there and still trying to bend you around the edge. But you watch him get that lean. Remember shin angle, if you saw the other video I did? Look at his shin angle on his left leg. And then he points his toes, and he just cuts that corner really efficiently. That's something that Will's working on as well. I hate to make this all about Will, but Danielle Hunter is already a fully developed product, whereas Will's still raw, still a rookie in a lot of respects, and he's going to be working to get this type of polish. Spin move, got caught up. So against the run, this right here, you're not going to necessarily see this as much. We saw some nice plays out of Will this year just when he was unblocked getting into the backfield. This play right here, the fake does nothing to hold. So here, I'll let you watch the play first. So because you had on this play a DB blitz coming, so from the outside, you got that defensive back up at the line of scrimmage. It does nothing to hold Danielle Hunter on the backside for the fake. The fake doesn't do anything. So this is a different play altogether. Okay, another good run play there. Stop it. So back to this play. So you're going to see the DB blitz. And because of that, like, Will's slanting inside anyway. He doesn't give a damn about keeping his eyes on the quarterback. But right there, just kind of the same way it used to be with Clowney, there's some plays that look really easy for him to make that are also actually because he takes such long strides and he's got such size. He's got so many examples of plays where when he's chasing quarterbacks in the open field, he's got both hands up, and it's like a grizzly bear's coming at you. And he gets a lot of quarterbacks basically just to buckle in the open field because he's so good at just constantly getting his hands in passing lanes and using his size to his advantage. This one, he's not a awesome run defender, but he's just so strong that he doesn't have awesome technique here. He's a little too high, but he understands where he fits in the defense, splits a double team and gets to it. Left defensive end, again, Euro step, so gets that offensive tackle, biting to the inside, comes up, and then there you go again with that shin angle, right? And he's got that right foot, that right toe pointed right towards the quarterback. Same way when you're throwing a ball, you want to have your toes pointed towards your target, like exactly the same with pass rushers. A lot of guys have a hard time getting their toes pointed towards the target to get around that corner. Another thing that Will mentioned that he's working on, and Danielle Hunter is a master at it. Got his hand up in the lane. You know, like that play was complete, but it's just time and time again. Left defensive end here. A little bit of a stutter step. Oh, that dude's fucked. Excuse my language. Look at him. Look at number 50. Oh, he's hosed. Boom. Spin. Yeah. Oh. Right defense. Oh, no, here he's up over the center again. So let's watch how big his steps are. I don't even remember this play, but I'm guessing his steps are huge as he goes to one side or the other. And then turns that corner and swipes at the ball. All right. Where is he here? Where are you? How could you be this big and I don't know which one you are? Left defensive end. Okay. This one I think is a tenacity example. Discards the tight end, comes inside, comes outside, spins back to the inside. I had to cut that off. If I go the clips longer than 6 seconds on this, they shut the live stream down. But he got close to the quarterback, did affect the pass. Left defensive end. Just, okay, the tight end's just trying to chip him there. Spin move. Gets his hand up, affects the throw. Left defensive end again. Turns that corner, gets the ball out, sack finally. So, like, after a day of really successful pass rushing where he hadn't had a sack, he gets one on the final series of the game. Lot to be excited about with not just Danielle Hunter and what he can offer the team, but what he can hopefully impart to Will Anderson. And a lot of the finer aspects of the things that you just have to do rep after rep after rep, 60 snaps in a game to get that one sack, 30 pass rushes in a game to get that one sack. Listen, we don't have to, why in the life of Colby? My God. Let's see. Hello all, finally caught alive. Better here than on air. All right. I've seen that from a few of you. I'd say I'm probably I'm less goofy here than I am on air. There's nobody to interrupt, so that helps me because I interrupt Sean a lot. And I think it depends on what you're looking for. I think in the morning show, we have a lot of just good banter, and a lot of people are driving to work. It's just a different vibe on a morning show than we come here. I don't get angry enough on here. I don't think I show enough of my true emotion. Oh, because of the cursing. I got you. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Brandon. See, I got to assume positive intent. I've been working on that, assuming positive intent. And you weren't even insulting me or anything. You were just making your statement about you prefer me here onto there. Or that's how I perceived it. It's just this negative bias we have as humans, trying to pound it out. Pause. Pound it out of me whenever I can. Thanks, man. All right. So that's Danielle Hunter. I'm excited about Danielle Hunter. I'd be stupid not to get excited about Danielle Hunter. I don't want to make it too much about Danielle Hunter's impact on Will Anderson, because Will's going to find his own way and he's going to work on his own arsenal of moves. But those very fundamental things, I would say the separation at the top, where when you watch Danielle Hunter, so many of the things he does is where you're working smarter instead of harder. When Danielle Hunter hits a guy with a power rush, he has set it up by multiple moves, speed rushes, either before that snap or within the snap, and it doesn't look hard. Like, he bulldozes dudes and trucks them to where they're on their heels, and it doesn't look that hard because he set it all up. There were a lot of times Will's rookie year where even when he was getting pressures, man, in the first half, when you're just grinding it out like you're pushing a 7-man sled all by yourself, that takes it out of you by the third and fourth quarters. And there's times where Will doesn't have to do that if he's just a little bit more meticulous about his approach and his strategy. And that's just something that you learn over time. The other things are just pointing your toes to flip your hips and get around that corner at the top of the rush. So maintaining the separation, pointing your toes, throwing your outside arm to get around that corner. And then the arsenal of moves comes along the way. If Will's been working on a spin move, just incorporating it to where it just becomes a natural part of your arsenal. Because when you watch Danielle Hunter, it never looks like he's thinking about it or planning about it. Like a lot of when you hit your third move in a pass rush, that's all improv at that point. And that's going to come. That's going to come with Will Anderson. I also felt bad that it seemed like 2/3 of the questions they asked any of the veteran defensive linemen in the press conferences were about Will Anderson. It's kind of like, remember the J.J. Watt era where every interview was started off with every interview of a non-J.J. Watt Texan was like, isn't J.J. awesome? He's just so awesome, isn't he? Oh, talk about J.J., which can wear on you as a teammate, I would imagine. Denico Autry. Let's see, one more from you. Harrison Aziz will be sneaking through the line for a few sacks this year also. Yeah, I think there's just having those bookend guys, and not to mention just all the other defensive linemen. We'll play Denico Autry here in a second. It's going to open up it for a lot of guys, and they're not gonna blitz nearly as much as Minnesota did last year with Danielle Hunter. Danielle's worked in multiple schemes up there. They're going to expect Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter to get it done. The other big part Bo Allen did a nice breakdown of them where maybe I'll try to find that. Let's do that. I'll edit this out if I ever get around to editing this. This is going to be sloppy AF, but I'm going to show Bo Allen, former teammate of D'Amico Ryans when they're in Philadelphia. He tells another story at another point where, see, this is how raw this is. I have not edited this at all. Let's see if we can there's something, when you understand pass protection, and as a defensive lineman, you can start calling the games on the defensive line because you know what the pass protection is. That's a next level thing for Will that guys like Danielle Hunter know really well. So let's watch Bo Allen break this play down.
Rush. Here he is again. Danielle Hunter, number 99. This clip's against the Chiefs. Watch this rush. I'll tell you what I like about it.
His pen works.
It's a great explosive inside move. Okay, so this is, I've talked about this a lot on Butter Breakdowns. I feel like I do this every fucking week. This is an ET game, right? So that means that the end goes first and the tackle loops around. And like I talked about, in Houston, there are like 4-man rushes, like get up the field. And a big part of that is running a lot of pass rush games. Like they don't blitz a ton on third down. They don't do a lot of the exotic blitzes and things that, Danielle Hunter was doing in Minnesota. They just ask their guys up front to get after it. So he's going to be running a lot of games with that crew in Houston. I love the timing and explosiveness of this. So this is a 2-step game, boom, where he just cracks it so well and does such a good job. And what I really like about this is the center, Creed Humphrey, is sliding this way too, right?
Here we go.
I like running an ET game to the side of the slide because it keeps the center out of it. That was some fucking excellent draw tool action from me, all right? But so what that means is If they're running a TE game here, okay, where the tackle goes first and the end loops around, this end is going to end up looping right into this center. But since they run this ET game to the side of the slide, it's not a factor. The center's not a factor, but that's just a little bit of football theory for you guys. I get carried away. What I really want you to watch here is just how much ground Danielle Hunter is able to gain, how explosively he attacks his pass rush game. This makes it so easy on Harrison Phillips, the D tackle, to like wrap around because he does such a good job of cracking it.
The other thing I'd add to that, Bo, is that the defensive tackle does a really good job of not turning his head and looking out to the defensive end, because then the guard knows immediately. And that's something that's like one of those finer aspects of running a game that a lot of even veteran players don't know. So he does a really good job of holding that guard in place.
Something he's going to be asked to do a ton.
And then also, if you the other thing about Danielle Hunter on that play is he goes in looking to ear hole that guard. Sometimes defensive ends will kind of selfishly just get really excited and just want to, try to find an open space. And then that screws the defensive tackle, but it also doesn't give you your best chance usually. Usually your best chance is to ear hole that guard, clear out the guard and the center, and then it creates a natural pivot point for you to pinball back up towards the quarterback.
In Houston, four-man games are a staple, like this wide nine defense. So that'll be really fun to watch. And then the thing I love too here is like just watch him finish this. He's so physical with this game. Gets the quarterback, gets a sack for his boy. Like he's celebrating. He didn't get this sack, but like he got it for his teammate. It's an incredible rush.
Yeah. Let's see. The other, well, he pointed it out. Thank you, Bo Allen. I got to get Bo Allen on here. I like him a lot. And he's got some really good stories about playing with Denico and how Denico just, how often he called out the plays and told him what plays were coming and when he was going to get double teamed, all that stuff, is when he was a rookie. So it helped him out a lot. But the big steps, like it's a theme that pass rushers are really latching onto. Will Anderson doesn't have the same length or the same hip mobility that Danielle Hunter does. I put him more kind of like Nick Bosa, where Nick Bosa is explosive and athletic and powerful, but he's not as fluid as a Danielle Hunter. And when you watch Nick Bosa get upfield, he takes these gigantic, like almost uncomfortable looking steps, those first three steps. I think Will can emulate that. It's that he already gets across the line really quickly. He can gain an extra foot or two on those first three steps by just treating it almost like you're running out of the 40, and you're not, because the contact doesn't come as quick when you're cocked out wide like that. And that's something he's going to pick up from Danielle Hunter and all these other guys. So Will can't emulate Danielle's game completely, but there's certainly some things that he can do they're going to help him immediately and make him look even more athletic than he already is. Use the guard as a bumper in bowling, basically, yes. Swarm, yes. Pen work, yeah, Bo's got the digital pen work, and when I've tried to use it on StreamYard, I just can't figure out how to do that. I'm a simple creature. Denico Autry. If there's one thing to get excited about Denico Autry, it is that I think at least one or two times a game he embarrasses an offensive lineman. And it makes my heart swell with joy and pride when I see an offensive lineman get embarrassed in front of his friends and family in the stands. His grandma's watching, and he just had his manhood taken from him. We've heard more colorful language out of Nick Caserio, I think, about a player every time he talks about Denico Autry. They just love this guy. So here's Nick Caserio talking about Denico Autry with some highlights in the background, in the foreground.
To Denico, I mean, this guy's a badass. I mean, this guy's a junkyard dog. Like, if you go into a dark alley, you want this guy behind you. Like, this is a bad MFer. I mean, and a really good football player who cares about football. And we've had to play against him over the last couple of years in, Tennessee, and then he was in Indianapolis. But glad he's on our side, and we're excited about what potentially he could bring.
Yeah, and I am too. I'm glad I got a shot of him just tearing up Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning, who came into the league acting like it was just a matter of time before he murdered somebody on the football field. He's just gotten destroyed routinely, including by Will Anderson. That's when I really started liking Will Anderson, was when Will Anderson destroyed Trevor Penning. Let me pull up my notes here. Okay, so in the press conference, Denico Autry is very, very different than Will Anderson. Denico Autry is a man of few words. He is a lunch pail carrying mofo, and it's like an old metal black lunchbox, the curvy time at the top, like the construction workers would carry while they were working on the Empire State Building. It's that kind of lunchbox. It's not like a Transformers plasticky type thing. This is Denico Autry on what appealed to you about D'Amico Ryan's defense.
When you look at Deneco Autry's defense, what were some things that stood out about joining this team and what you think you can contribute to it?
Just that swarm, just swarming to the ball, relentless effort, getting out the stack. It's just the way the defense set up is how I play the game. So I feel like it would have been a great fit for me.
Yeah, I don't think it was a hard sell, and obviously the money plays into it. I think the biggest thing with him is that he played with Azeez Al-Shaair. And a lot of people in Tennessee pointed to those two guys as the free agents that were low-key guys that you really didn't want to lose. And I think it's because they had that lunch pail mentality. They're just old-school, blue-collar badasses that look, talk, play like football players. And, you wonder, okay, did Azeez Al-Shaair talk to him about this defense before they made the decision, or if they had conversations about it since? Hold. I don't know what's going on there. This is more, these are Denico Autry highlights. We'll just watch these just for the hell of it. Got his hand on the ball. Hand on the ball. Him and Danielle Hunter both do a really good job. Oh, I see what happened. Hold on a second, everybody. Oh, I know what was going on here. I was going to have these play while I talked. I think this is the one about conversations with Al-Shaair.
Help him walk through the program, not program, but the system.
Here we go.
Yeah. We was talking earlier this morning about the defense. Like I said, he's helping walk through the program, not program, but the system and learning the defense.
Yeah, he's a man of few words, which I love. This is just on Will Anderson himself.
Oh, man. Will knows it all, man. He knows the defense. He helps me out learning the system. You know what I mean? He's a good guy, good kid. You know what I mean? So just being around Will, I look forward to playing with him.
Yeah, like that's the most emotion you're going to get out of him, which is nice. The other big question about Denico Autry, and as somebody pointed, I'll play those highlights again because as in the life of Colby noted, what was Deshaun doing on that sack? We'll play that in a minute after this answer. It was awesome. I'll go through the highlights now that I'm not so discombobulated, and I'll show you what I'm sure a lot of you saw. Maybe one of the weirdest plays I've ever seen out of a quarterback who's not Jameis Winston. So when Denico Autry signed, remember that was before Danielle Hunter was signed. The Texans were trying to trade for Eric Armstead, who would have played defensive tackle. And you wonder, I wonder if Denico Autry is a little bit peeved that he went from probably playing a whole lot of defensive end opposite of Will Anderson to now on passing downs, he's probably going to be down playing inside. He was asked about just that versatility and perhaps his need to play multiple positions.
It really don't change if you're just getting off and attacking. I mean, I'm just going to attack every position I'm at, and it should work out for me.
Yeah. Did you say that shit works out for me? None of these guys censor themselves anymore, which is nice. Here we go. All right, let's watch these. There he is at the left defensive end. That's where he got his hand on the ball there. Like, he does that a lot. Causes fumbles. Hand on the ball there. Coming around the edge, gets his hand in the passing lane. Like I said, him and Danielle Hunter are both really good at that. That's the one. So if you missed it, there is a coaching point here. So he's the guy right on the first and 10. And watch him get his hands up in the air, just like Danielle Hunter does a really good job of doing when you're in the open field. Especially the defensive linemen sometimes. You don't feel so silky smooth out there in wide open spaces, and it almost feels like you're putting yourself in a less athletic position by getting your hands up. But it makes quarterbacks make decisions like this one. There's Deshaun going down, right? You could hear me. All right. Here's Denico Autry. He's the right defensive tackle, I believe. Just working, keeping his hands active. That same play after there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So, oh yeah, he said should at the end there. He didn't swear. Tim Settle might be slept on. Yeah, I don't think Tim Settle's going to be all pro or anything, but the way it is right now on defense, I was a little surprised they were going after Eric Armstead, not because I don't admire him as a player, but he is, I believe, 33 years old, which makes me feel old because it doesn't seem like he's been in the league that long. But he's been injured and banged up the last couple years. So on this team where you've added a lot of veteran guys in their 30s, in their low to mid 30s, I didn't know if I wanted to attempt just another high-priced guy that is just going to be more prone to injury by age alone, not to mention prior history. But he would have been a guy that could be out there all three downs. He could be a force versus the run. He could get his hands up in passing lanes. Right now, they're going to be more by committee. And you've got your bigger dudes, when you need bigger dudes for whatever the game plan or the situation commands. And then you've got your guys like Denico Autry that can come down and rush on the inside. Deshaun, then he laid out like he got knocked out in the 8th round. It was bad. I don't know if you guys noticed. I had one of Aziz Alshire's clips that I had played on his highlights was also one of the better hits on Deshaun Watson. So I try to provide those little gifts for you guys. Thanks for noticing it. The one thing, I did a video yesterday that was not well received at all, and it was a partial defense of the Jaguars contract for Trevor Lawrence. I think I forgot to make this point in it, because I think Texans fans that watch that video, which again is barely getting any clicks at all. It's a really good video, frankly. Frankly, I put a lot of work into that thing, but I knew that it might not. But I'm trying to branch out a little bit. I will defend the Jaguars signing Trevor Lawrence to that contract for all the reasons that I cited yesterday. The looming franchise tag, the fact that if they do really genuinely like Trevor Lawrence, it's going to cost that much more to do it next year. If they had waited until after the Tua Tagovailoa contract or Jordan Love or certainly Dak Prescott, the Trevor Lawrence contract probably would have cost more. But that you also have that franchise tag looming out, which would be a factor in negotiations next year, and that it's just so hard to get a quarterback that you even feel good about. The guys are getting drafted. Guys are getting drafted in the first round now. That really, in previous years, would have been drafted in the 4th or 5th round because teams are so desperate. So I'll defend it on a lot of fronts, and I could make some excuses for Trevor Lawrence. I'd say as a Texans fan, this is the point that I should have included in the video. It's that it makes sense for the Jaguars to do that, and yet it's still a huge blow up if it doesn't work out. It made sense if you ignore all the off-field stuff. It made sense for the Browns to give Deshaun Watson the contract they did, but until Deshaun Watson starts playing like peak Deshaun Watson, that is just a hefty, hefty burden that the Browns have no choice but to carry for the next few years. So, yeah, as a Texans fan, I think I can make excuses for Trevor Lawrence for why he hasn't played like a generational pick. But I think the threat is if he just turns into a really good NFL quarterback. He's not there yet. I hope that he doesn't, and I hope that contract blows up in their face. It's just, I understand why they did it. If I were in that same position, I mean, if we had a texter on the show this morning say, we were trying to think of quarterbacks who didn't get that extension after their third year. Dak Prescott was one, and the Cowboys ended up paying a lot more for Dak Prescott the next year. Somebody brought up Baker Mayfield, and I don't know if he was arguing that, like, hey, you shouldn't be in a huge hurry to do this. I always wonder if you go back in history if Baker Mayfield hadn't gotten hurt, what exactly would have happened that fourth season in Cleveland after he'd taken them to the playoffs the year before and done some really good things. And now you see the way he's being treated. I think Baker Mayfield, his ceiling, it would look different than Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know. His ceiling might be something that if you had given him that contract then, would they have been better off with Baker Mayfield these last few years? It's impossible to say. But I don't think the contract that he would have gotten that year would have looked all that rough right now for what you're getting out of him. Let's see. Got a good chart off PFF. Settle was basically rated about the same as Malik Collins. Fatukasi was rated much higher versus the run than Rankins. But Rankins was better at rushing the quarterback. Yeah, and that's where Settle and Fatukasi are those bigger bodies. That there's sometimes, the PFF grades. I think PFF does a really, really good job at charting a lot of stuff. When it comes to their grades and how they calculate them, there's just things that are off. And with the big body defensive tackles, I think that there's a certain element of just simple geometry that just having those wide bodies in there at times makes a huge difference. There's just your ability to anchor, like Malik Collins could anchor a double team perfectly with perfect technique. And it's sometimes not as good as having a big fatty who maybe gives up a half yard or a yard of ground, but just creates such a massive humanity that linebackers can be more decisive, and it makes a running back. It makes a running back have to cut at a different angle, like when they're running duo or power or something like that. It's hard to necessarily quantify by grades. There's still value in having big fat dudes on the defensive line. Thank God. It's what made America great, was big fat defensive linemen. So it's like using them appropriately. I'm not worried about those two. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't see the first one. I don't think Lawrence is near as bad as so many Texans want to claim. He played hurt a lot last year. Look at Burrow. He played hurt and wasn't as productive. It's unfair to claim bust for Trevor. Yeah, I think that part of it with Trevor, I think, is that because the expectations for some were so high that anything other than being the next Peyton Manning is a little bit of a letdown, but you gotta move beyond that at some point. I felt like Clowney suffered from that somewhat. Last year I see all these people talking about how, wow, this is the best year Clowney's ever had. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, he was actually super productive when he was healthy for those last couple of years in Houston. Super productive. It just wasn't up to expectations. So after he's on a few different teams and now he's more designated as a veteran journeyman, people were looking at him in Baltimore and saying like, whoa, boy, wish we could have gotten this Clowney sometime. No, if Baltimore had drafted him number 1 overall, last season wouldn't have been acceptable in people's minds. The other thing about the injuries, he had injuries, yes. I tend to be less forgiving of quarterbacks with their injuries because the really good quarterbacks play through a boatload of injuries all the time. C.J. Stroud played with a separated shoulder the entire season last year. It's not a pleasant injury. It's the worst kind of injury because it's incredibly painful, but there's no reason not to play with it. Unless, if it's on your throwing arm, that's a whole different deal. But even as a defensive lineman, like, it sucks because it hurts like hell, but there's not really any more damage you're going to do to it than already has been done. It's not actually a critical. That AC joint right there, it's not that it's not that important. It's weird. Like I knew guys who had AC joints where their clavicle would be permanently raised up above the joint, like they were permanently dislocated. And it was grotesque to look at. So you just got this bone sticking up like this, and played their whole careers with it. You can get it shaved down and put back in and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's see. Trevor has 69 turnovers and 60 touchdowns. Many people have legit grievances with his play. He has more turnovers in the league since he was drafted. The most turnovers in the league. A couple things about that. The turnovers wouldn't be as big a deal if he had more touchdown production, because the ratio is obviously not great. The turn, like over the last 3 years, he's had the most turnovers. But if you look at who's second and third on that list, it's Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. The difference is that they've produced way more on the positive side, so their ratio is obviously a lot better. I think with Trevor Lawrence, if you're going to make excuses for him, I don't listen to the injuries. It doesn't count for me. I'm sorry. I just don't. Maybe I'm a dick. But I think not having good offensive line play for a young quarterback who needs his mechanics to be right because he's so long and lanky, that longer and lankier guys with slower, more methodical deliveries, they've got to have everything on point mechanically. And there are times where when he's off a little bit, either because of poor offensive line play or because he doesn't trust the offensive line, he starts moving around in the pocket when he doesn't need to. That's when things go awry. And it doesn't mean he's a system quarterback, because I think when he does have his mechanics dialed in, he can be downright brilliant at points. I've seen some really, really good stretches of play out of him, but it's a matter of doing it consistently. And that's a big if. You know, I think Josh Allen kind of screwed up a lot of people's expectations for how much you can change your mechanics. Dak Prescott and Josh Allen, because those are two guys who improved their accuracy by improving their mechanics, but it's still very much the exception that happens in the NFL. And maybe if you stick a rock-solid offensive line in front of Trevor Lawrence all the time, and then if because Trevor Lawrence trusts that offensive line that he's more on point with his footwork, then he could be much more of a force than he is right now. It's just a huge if. It's a big if. McVay on the green light talking about run game production for the Rams. Coop Shanny system worth a look. Okay, cool. I will look at Sean McVay on the green light. Clowney was dealing with injuries at the beginning of last year. He said he was feeling better than he had in a long time. Yeah, it was when he was healthy in Houston. I mean, and that's another thing, you know, over time with defensive linemen, if you got to worry about their injuries. You know, Clowney, to bring this back to what we started off talking about with Danielle Hunter, Clowney was the classic guy that when you talk about flexibility and bend and all those other things, Clowney would get really close, but couldn't quite finish the way a guy like Danielle Hunter can. And some of that just comes down to natural flexibility, but some of it also comes down to just what are you working at over and over and over again. Those last two steps before you get to the quarterback, what you're doing as you're winning a pass rush. Clowney didn't do as good a job as the premier pass rushers at kind of setting himself up for that. And part of it might have been just he was, for a super athletic guy, he was kind of stiff in a lot of ways, so it was more of a challenge for him to do that. I just, if Clowney had been drafted 10th overall, I think we'd probably have a different feel about him. I just, and I know that he wasn't necessarily a coach's dream or anything. Also had a lot of support from that Ravens defense, yeah. Do I have expectations for the Texans? No. Anticipation? Yes. I'll take that. All right. Nice Monday afternoon live stream. I'm going to start trying to do these more consistently at 1 p.m. Central. So I can't promise every day for now. The plan would be that when we get to training camp, that I'll be doing this at 1 p.m. every day. That's the aspiration. It's going to take a little while to get there, but when you do have a live stream, it's most likely going to be at 1 p.m. So take a long lunch break or push it back a little bit. Fasting's all the rage these days, all right? Yeah, just skip breakfast. Remember, everybody told you, whatever you do, don't miss breakfast for years and years and years. That was what was drilled in our head. And because we followed that, it kept us alive and healthy enough to get to this point where, oh no, you're never supposed to eat breakfast. Never eat breakfast. You won't get shredded.